Rob, testing, testing. Got it? Good?
Good morning. I know we are on a tight timetable this morning, so we're going to get the assembly moving, but obviously this is a very special assembly for us. We're honored to have our guests today, and I know this ties in with a lot of what we've discussed in your various classes, whether it's English classes or social studies or any of the cross-curricular programs that we do. So I expect your undivided attention. I know you're going to pay attention here. They'll take us through the, initially, our guests are going to take us through their particular story, and then there will be a time for Q&A. I know logistically this period runs about an hour. We'll have a natural break after that hour. For those of you who are staying for the remaining Q&A, you can stay here. We couldn't fit our entire school in the auditorium, so we are live streaming this to our 7th and 8th grade right now. Hopefully the technology is working in the classrooms so that they could experience this also. Yeah, if you could just please stay out of the main aisle during the presentation. With that being said, at this time I'm going to turn the assembly over to our guests, and I would like to introduce Isabella, who's our moderator today.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for having us here today. And I really want to give praise not only to you students, but also to the teachers and the administration for having us here today, because obviously you value the importance of the survivor stories and of the Holocaust. You guys are very fortunate because you are one of the few the last generation and the last few people to be able to have the opportunity to hear an actual survivor. Unfortunately, the survivors are aging out. The war happened a long time ago, and they're telling their stories because it's important for you to hear what they have to say, to hear about the history firsthand. And it's going to be your responsibility to continue to tell their stories. So I'm going to ask you guys to take a moment and to close your eyes. Okay? Think about someone that is of importance to you, someone that you're going to see later on today or over the weekend, someone that you can talk to. Have that person in your mind. Now open your eyes. You're going to have homework for the weekend. You're going to take that person and you're going to tell them the stories of what you heard today, because your voices are going to be an extension of Fred and Mark's voice, because they're not going to be around forever to tell their stories. So now it's your responsibility to continue to tell the stories so we never forget. So I'm also going to take a moment of silence and light a candle. This candle is in memory of the 6 million Jews, as well as the 5 million other people that were killed during World War II. It's also in honor of all the survivors and people, the righteous people that helped fight the war and survived. You're going to get a bracelet later that says "Remember and Tell," and that's your bracelet to remember these stories and to tell these stories. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mark as a survivor to tell his story. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here and listening to my story of survival during the Second War. I was a small child, and my parents and me and my sister lived in a little town in Poland. The name of the town was Brzostek. My father used to own a farm. He had a nice house and had some people who worked for him. And I am emphasizing this because this is important of my survival. There was this Polish family that used to work for my father on this farm, and my father gave him 2 rooms in our house, so they lived there. And our life was kind of normal life like you live right now here. Every day, get up in the morning, parents went to work in the fields, and normal life. Till in 1939, when the Germans occupied Poland, took over, and we saw the Germans coming through our little town, but nobody was kind of thinking or aware what's going to happen later. My father happened to be the head of the Jewish community in this town. So when the Germans, after a few months, the Germans used to come in particular the Gestapo, which was the German police, used to come to our house and ask my father how many Jews are in town, what they do. They want to know all the information about it. So we were kind of constantly, my parents were in touch with the Germans. One day, they came in and they told my father that he has to leave the house because they need the property to give to some of the German Volksdeutsch, which was somebody who was kind of part of a German. So they told my parents, take any belongings that you have, that you can carry, and get out and get yourself a room someplace in town, and you're going to just to live there. And that's what my parents did. They found a little room, we moved there, but my father still was being called to the police headquarters and asking questions. And one day, like any other day, he went, and he never came back in the evening. We waited and waited. He wasn't here. All of a sudden, somebody knocks on a window. My mom looks, and she sees the wife of the Polish chief of police from this town. And she came in, and she mentions to my mom, listen, I overheard that my conversation between my husband and the Gestapo, and they were telling my husband that in the next few days, they're going to take all the Jews and send them away somewhere. So she says, I would suggest that you take your 2 kids and try to run away from here someplace, because definitely they will come and take you. So Mom says, thank you, and she left. Mom didn't know what to do, where to go. So she decided, well, let me go back to my house where we used to live. I go to the people that used to work for us, ask them if they can help me out. And that's what Mom did. She took me and my little sister, and we went to our house, former house, and she's asking the gentleman whose name was Mr. Piwat, listen, that's what I heard, that they're going to eliminate it. Can you give me an idea on what to do, where to go, where to run somewhere, go, but I don't know what to do. So he says, well, it's late in the evening. Why don't you leave him with me, let him sleep with my kids, and you go to my cousin, stay overnight there, and tomorrow I will come in and we decide what to do. My mom left. She took my sister with her. And he tells me, you go and sleep between my kids. Just go on between them and go to sleep. Okay, that's what happened. Next morning, early next morning, all of a sudden, somebody opens the door and we see the Germans, the Gestapo coming in. They just walking into the room, and they go to the Mr. Pewat and they say to him, we were told that the Schoenwetter family is here. Tell us where are they? So he says, they're not here. So they say to him, well, let me repeat. We were told that they're here, and I'm sure they're here. So don't waste our time, because I have my people here. I'm going to tell them to go and look for them. And if I find them, now we're going to kill you and them. So where are they? And he says, no, they're not here. You go ahead and look. So he says, okay, guys, let's go and look. So the, excuse me, so the Gestapo, the police goes out to look around. Meanwhile, he tells this one German Gestapo guy turns around and he's asking the oldest daughter, how many brothers and sisters do you have here? And she looks at him and she tells a number, 8. So he goes, it starts counting, 8 kids. So he walks out. Well, that was the first time I got lucky, because she was smart enough to include me in the count of the brothers and sisters. Anyway, so Mr. Pewat tells to his kids, get up quick, go outside, take out the horses, cows, get yourself busy. And he tells me, and you go out, but you run into the bushes, hide yourself, and don't come back to the house. You just wait there, and I will come and take you. That's what it was. I was waiting for a few hours. He came in, he took me to my mom, and he says, well, I don't know, but I know that there is a much larger town close, and there is a ghetto there. So I think you'll be safe if I take you to the ghetto. So he says, let's go and you can live there. So we walked for a few hours. We got to the ghetto, came in. He says, go in. Well, of course, you had an entrance to the ghetto. The Germans were watching, but you could never get out from there. So, but anyway, we walked in, and my mom was walking around in this ghetto looking for a location where to find a spot to live there somewhere. Well, it took a while before she finally found a little spot big enough for 3 of us to be next, close, because there was not much room left anywhere. Well, the life in this ghetto, it was horrible. People were living tight in every little house, was full of people. If they couldn't find a place in a house, people were living on the street. You couldn't get anything, no stores, nothing. So how did you live? Well, in the morning we were told to stay in line. We went to the kitchen. When your turn came in, and they gave you a cup of soup, they called it, which was warm water, without any taste, and a slice of bread. Then in the afternoon, you got the same thing, and that was your food for a day. Well, you were all the time hungry. There was no water, no toilets, no nothing. It was life, no clothes to change. Whatever we walked into the ghetto, we lived in the same clothes day by day. We got sick. If you got sick, if you were lucky, and got better, then you survived. If not, you died on the street or in the house, and they used to come in with a little wagon, pick up the bodies, and take them away. We lived like that for about 3 months. Then the rumor was start going around that they're going to liquidate the ghetto. Well, Mom was thinking what to do, how to escape from here. There's no way. Then all of a sudden, a little boy comes into my mom, and he says, there is a gentleman standing outside of the other side of the gate, and he was asking me to find you. Let me show you where he is. So Mom went, and here's Mr. Pewat again, and he says, listen, bring your 2 kids, and I'm going to show you what to do. I'm taking you out because they're going to liquidate this ghetto here soon. So my mom went, brought me and my sister, and he says, okay, I'm going to throw a blanket over the barbed wire, and you pick up one at a time, throw him over, and I catch him, then you jump over, and we get out from here. And that's what Mom did. Threw us over. He was a house next to on the other side of the fence, and he took us in. He says, take your dirty clothes off. I have some clothes for you, change, and then we're going to walk through the town and get out from here. And that's what we did. We walked for a while, a few hours as a matter of fact, and he brought us over to a little village, to a house, and he introduced us to the people there, and he says, those are the people that I ask you if you can hide them here, give them shelter in your house. So the woman says to my mom, okay, take the 2 kids, go up on the attic, go in, cover yourself with hay, and make sure that those 2 little ones, they don't talk, they don't laugh, they don't cry, not a word. You have to be constantly quiet so nobody would hear that you live in this house. So that's how we went on the attic, and we were living there through the winter, and she used to bring us some food there. Then when the summer came in, the springtime, excuse me. In springtime came in, she says to my mom, listen, I'm sorry, but you have to leave because people are going to start working in the fields, and they may hear something, notice something. It's dangerous. You have to leave the house and go. So my mom didn't know where to go and what to do. So she says, you know, I would suggest, why don't you go into the forest? It's a very big forest here. Go find yourself a spot and live. It's summertime, it's warm, so my mom didn't have much of a choice. She took me and my sister. We went to the forest. We found ourselves a spot between the bushes. We took leaves, made a spot so we can sleep on top of on those leaves. And that's how we lived through the summer. And basically, we lived through the summertime in the forest, and then when the winters came in, we lived well, my mom would start walking and looking for a location where to find a spot in somebody's house, because the winters are very, you know, winter, snow, cold. There's no way you can sit in forest or any place. So winter time, finally, we found places in Polish houses, and we lived there. Now, while we lived in the forest during the summers, basically food, my mom was walking around the forest, and she was picking up wild mushrooms wherever they grew. So we ate those mushrooms or berries. And when it was raining, we got wet. Then when the sun came in, we took our clothes and we hung them on a tree, dried out, then we put them back on, and we lived like that through the summers. And situations once, while we were in the forest, my mom we were walking around, and we came across a group, about 20-something people, Jewish people who were hiding also in this forest. So when they saw my mom, they told her, well, why don't you come in with the 2 kids and join us, and we'll live all together. We will stay here all together. And my mom says, no, 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 no. I don't want to stay in a big group of people, because it's very easy for somebody to pass by in the forest and notice a big group of people hiding here. I be staying with my kids by myself. I don't want it. Well, they were kind of talking, tried to convince her, but she wouldn't. So there was 2 cousins in this group, and they say to Mom, why don't you go and stay with us here? She says, no, I won't. I don't. And she took us. We went back to our location. In a couple days, the 2 cousins came in, and they said, we cannot let you stay by yourself with the 2 kids. We'll be with you. We will stay with you here. And that's where we were together. And about a month later or so, all of a sudden, early in the morning, we hear shots, single shots. So we figure maybe some Polish police is here around it. But a few seconds later, all of a sudden, machine gun. So we know the Germans are here. So my mom says, okay, we have to run away from here, because they may look around, and in the forest they're going to, let's run away. So they start running forward, and my mom says to them, no, no, no. What we need to do, we have to somehow run, but we have to go around them, find a way to go, and go in the back where they've been already. And so they said, but you cannot go there, because they're going to see you. How are you going to? You don't know where to go. So we find a place. We find somehow, we have to be careful, and we go. And that's what it was. She took us, and we went to the places where we heard the shots, but we passed the whole thing. We were hiding in the forest behind them. Then by the end of the day, we decided to go back and see what's going on in the place where we were. When we came back there, all the 20-plus people were dead. We just saw bodies laying on the ground. Another miracle for us. Now, winter times, when we were going, my mother used to go to houses and ask people to take us in. And when she got lucky, somebody finally took us in for a week. They told us no more. So when we went in and we were in their house for a week, sometimes this 1 week became 2 or 3 weeks. Then we had to go and look for another location. most of the time we were sitting in the attics and hiding in a hay covert, and that's where we lived. And one winter, my mom went to one of the families, asked, so the gentleman says, well, let me think what to find a safe place for you. Come back in a couple days and I will see, I figure out something. So when we came back, he tells us, he takes my mom and he says, you see, I have here a pigsty. I took and I dig a little hole inside. Now, you can be in this hole, but as you can see, there is only enough space for you not even to sit. You have to lay all the time. Lay down and that's it. I cannot dig too deep there. If you're comfortable with that, you're going to live there. So my mom says okay, I be here. So she says, okay, go in and lay down. So that's what we did. Went, lay down. He took pieces of wood, put on top of it. Then he put hay on top of it there. He brought the pig in back. So we were on the bottom in the hole. The pig was on top of us. And that's how we lived for a winter time, one winter like that. He made a little hole on the side so he could push in some food for us. Once a day, we got something to eat, and that's how we lived. Occasionally, he took the pig out. He told us to come out, and he says, okay, straighten out a little bit, get a little fresh air, and then back to his place. And that's how we lived, all those kind of different conditions. Anyway, then summer came in 1944. We went back to the forest, but soon after a few months, all of a sudden, we noticed that there is a movement of the German armies. We heard shootings, and then we start seeing tanks going, and we figured there's no way we can sit anymore in the forest. So, didn't know where, walked out from the forest, and we noticed there were many Polish people running away from the front line deeper into the German side. So what my mom did, she took us, and we joined a group of people, and walk. Finally, people in the villages used to take some people and say, okay, I take 2 families, I take 3 families in my house, I have room, and you stay. And that's how we stood and started living. But at that point, my mom told us, now you change your names, and you're going to live and be like all the Polish people. And you know, Polish people are religious people, Christians. So now you have to make sure that I show you how to pray, how to cross yourself when you get up in the morning and you sit and eat breakfast. Then when Sunday comes in, we're going to go to church like everybody else goes. And that's how we're going to make sure that your names now, whatever she gave us, and that's the way we're going to live. And that's how we lived for a few months till 1945. All of a sudden in February, everything quieted down, and we noticed different soldiers walking in, and we didn't know who they are, but they looked different than the German, the uniforms and everything. When they came in, they started talking, we couldn't understand them. But then one of them spoke a little Polish, and he told us, "You're free, you're liberated. There's no more germs around here. Go home, go home." And we were so happy, we were so thrilled that finally we survived, that the war is over and we're still alive. So I just told you some highlights of my survival during the Holocaust. And I'm saying that I am the luckiest person in the world, because in the town where I came from, altogether this town had about 1,500 families, from which 500 were Jewish people. From the 500, about 10 only survived the Holocaust. And between them was my mom, myself, and my sister. So as you can see, during this period of time, 6 million Jews were killed, plus another 5 million people were killed, not Jews. So Hitler had in his mind to eliminate everybody who was not according to his philosophy, to his way to create a society, just whatever he felt like to do. So I think it's very important that when I say my life story, it's not only my lives, but the other few, I say few people that survived the Holocaust by being in concentration camps or in other locations that they survived. So we have to keep in mind that in the future, this never happens again. We have to be aware, and youth in particular, as the younger generation coming up, that your kids, your grandkids, for whatever reason, if somebody gets a little crazy, that will never happen this again. Because we can live together. It makes no difference who we are and what we are. I feel if you're Christian, if you're Muslim, if you're Jewish, makes no difference. We're all human beings. And we should make sure that and be aware that with hatreds to each other, we're not going to accomplish anything. We accomplish much more in our lives if we be kind to each other, we respect each other, we love each other, we enjoy our lives. So keep this in mind, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much. Amazing. And now we're going to have the great opportunity to hear from Fred. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabella. Thank you, Mark. First of all, everybody in this room, thank you for being here. Unfortunately, people see us, but they're not in this room. So good morning to all of you who hear us speaking and in this room. I appreciate that. And I want to say something about what Mark just gave you. Every survivor relives the story that we're telling, including me. I'll share you in a moment what my story is. But to you, let's change places. Let's all of you be on the stage. You're going to tell your story, and I'm sitting out there, and I am out there, your age that you are right now. You know what would go through my mind, and some people in here will totally agree with me right now what I'm going to say sitting out there with you. Says, why am I doing this? This happened 87 years ago. It's not today. Okay? What this is all about. We are here, Mark and I and Isabella, we are here to tell you the lessons that the Holocaust, the lessons of the Holocaust. Why are we doing this? I ask myself, being out there not knowing anything about the Holocaust, why do I need to know this? You need to know. The world needs to know. 6 million Jews were targeted? Absolutely. There were more. They're all ashes. Those are 6 million stories that are not heard anymore. My parents and I survived. I'll share that story with you in a moment. But my family tree, the Hyman family tree, they did not. Cannot hear their stories, okay? So is the Holocaust 6 million stories that we haven't heard? Or can we say it's one story that must be told 6 million times? What Mark said, maybe it has to be told 6 million times. That's what the Holocaust is all about. I wish to tell that story 6 million times. Every survivor story is different. Every survivor suffered. But I want to bring it forward to something else. Adolf Hitler and the Nazis targeted the Jews. They targeted the Jews. They targeted religion. They targeted faith. Let's look at 2019. It does not make any sense to talk about 87 years ago and not recognize what's happening in 2019. That's where you guys are. And what scares me personally, I have elected officials, senators, House of Representatives, elected by us adults, targeting faith, targeting religion in our country. That's scary to me. When I was born in Berlin, Germany. When I was born, I'm not getting older. You are. I become more mature. But I give you the date. I was born in 1929. Don't do the arithmetic. Doesn't matter. It changes every year. Right? So, okay. But I was in my life where you are today, and I had no clue what was coming off. We did not know about the Holocaust that you're learning in the school right now till afterwards. While we were living at that time, and Mark was living wherever you were, you know you were in danger. Probably didn't even know about people dying in a gas chamber, right? It was all a secret. Nobody came back and told about it, okay? So let's bring it forward. It is deplorable to me what I see on television in our country. Before I tell my story, most of you got an iPhone, an Android, a smartphone. It has what they call apps on it, APPs, applications. One application I don't want you to put on that smartphone. I'm going to spell it. I'm not going to pronounce the word. I'm going to spell it. If I pronounce the word, then it becomes an application. H-A-T-E. Since I'm not going to pronounce the word, if you do not like broccoli, do not say H-A-T, broccoli. Broccoli has no feelings. We're still with me now? Okay? But if you say H-A-T-E, animals, An animal can sense that. And if you say H-A-T, human beings, Jews, Christians, whatever, they can sense that. H-A-T started World War II and all the wars. H-A-T are arguments that end into war. That's where you come in. Starting today, everybody in this room and all the wonderful people that are not here, unfortunately, but hear and see us, this can become a life changer to you. You can put Newton on the map. If you come out of the school and you go to your local stores, whoever you're dealing with, and you find people in the store having a name tag, read the name tag and say, "Hi, Janet, how are you?" And say, "Hi, young man, hi, young lady, how are you?" And then you say, "My name is Fred." Thank you. My name is Fred. What you're doing is you're establishing a civil conversation. Let me put it a different way. If you get constant headaches and say, "I got to see a doctor," what's causing the headaches? It could be something serious. And if you end up with a neurologist, let's examine that. We'll give you an MRI, or I put some probes on your head, and I can measure something that goes on in there. Well, what is that up here? You can see what the doctor is doing on a scope. It's an energy, it's electricity, tiny pulses, something like that. It's in this room. It's in this room. Now we call it Wi-Fi. We call it Bluetooth. Okay? And it's in this room. I can walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, I like you." And I don't know why I walk up to that person, because I just got to want to talk to that person. It's a common feeling, a common aura, so to speak. You can do that starting by just shaking hands, tell your name, read the name tag. That's why the name tag is there. Think about that. I don't know how many students are listening to me right now. Several hundred, close to 1,000 maybe, I don't know. If you guys go out and do this, this school is going to get a reputation. Those students from that school, Kittatinny Regional High School, they're really something. You're changing the world. And with that, it will grow on you. I talk to people in the elevator. They all come on with a cell phone. I live in Morristown. It's an office building, and park my car, and they all come on the elevator with a cell phone. I say, "Good morning, everybody." I swear, people text back to me, "Good morning." And then I have to say, "I'm sorry, I didn't bring my cell phone." You see what I'm saying? The world is changing. Start talking. Start telling the story that you're hearing today. Bring it forward, what's happening. Faith is being attacked again. It's worse today than the Holocaust. Adolf Hitler and the Nazis contained it in Europe. Terrorism is throughout the whole world. Let the good energy in the room, in the air, overcome the bad energy that exists out there. Think about that. So that's your mission today, starting today. Let this be a life changer. Come forward. You got to change the world. We're in a horrible shape. What's going on, start listening to the news. And the news can be slanted. I'll come back to this. I was born at 1929, when Germany was a democratic republic. My parents and I were not transported to a concentration camp. We came very close to that. 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed chancellor. Adolf Hitler, up to that point, was a failure with whatever he was doing. He never completed high school. He dropped out of high school. Okay, he was born in Austria, and he wanted to become an artist, and he went to the Fine Academy in Vienna to become an artist. He was not accepted. one thing after another. He left Austria, went to Munich, Germany. When World War I broke out, he enlisted in the German Wehrmacht, and the highest rank he got was a corporal. A corporal. That's when you go and when you enlist or when you get into the service, you're just a government issue, a GI, and when you little while there, the first promotion you can get is corporal. You're in charge of 9 men. You're a squad leader. Okay, that's all he was. At the end of the war, he started his rhetoric. He got out of it, but he started his rhetoric talking about the Jews and the communists. He was obsessed hating Jews and communists. Nobody paid attention to him. He ended up at the Social Workers' Party in Germany, which turned out to be later on the Nazi Party. He was a go-for. That's all he was at the headquarters. He would take out on the streets and hand out flyers. Go-for is a term that they have on stage in Broadway. Go for this, go for that, okay? He was a good speaker. Everybody was fascinated when he was speaking. 1933, he ran in 1932. He ran for against President Hindenburg. He was not elected twice. There was a runoff election. He was not elected. Nazi Party got popular, not the majority. But because he was a good speaker, he was appointed chancellor. Every country has the position like chancellor. Sometimes they're called prime ministers. In our country, we don't have a chancellor, but we got the same position. It's a secretary of state. Right now, a secretary of state is Pompeo, whatever it is, okay? That's by appointment. Hitler was appointed on January 30th, 1933. I was there living in Berlin where he was appointed. There was a lot of excitement, a lot of fireworks. I was 3.5 years old, young. And it was exciting. The next day, Adolf Hitler gave his acceptance speech in the Sports Palace in Berlin. I heard it over the radio. People, not everybody had a radio. People that heard it had a radio, put their radio on the window so everybody that doesn't have a radio could hear the speech, okay? And he said, Deutschland hat jetzt nun erwacht. That means Germany now has been awoken, and now it's up to the rest to us to awake the rest of the people. In front of thousands of Nazi stormtroopers in the Sports Palace. Everybody cheered. That's the day the Holocaust began in Berlin. The day it ended was on April 30th, 1945, when Adolf Hitler shot himself in the underground bunker at the Reichschancellery. My parents and I were in an underground bombed-out air raid shelter when that happened, within walking distance where Adolf Hitler shot himself. We did not know, but that's the day our Holocaust was over. Hitler could no longer put us in harm's way. Okay? I almost lost my life on that day. The Russians came in our underground chamber. They had no facility, no water, no food, no electricity. Was horrible. And they threw a hand grenade in a corner over there where we hollered and says, "Don't shoot, we're civilian." Okay, I was 16 years old. 5 days before before he shot himself on April 25th was my 16th birthday. All you guys, when you come to high school, you're only looking for one thing. Become 16 years old, you learn how to drive. The next thing you look for is a car, okay? Hopefully you get one, okay? You're looking that way. For my 16th birthday, I got my first wristwatch. I was in heaven. And that Russians came in with floodlights. We had our hands up, and a little guy took my wristwatch away that I just got 5 days ago. I was heartbroken. It's all right, it's over. I'll get another wristwatch one of these days. I said to the lieutenant there, says, Ich bin ein Jude, I'm a Jew, I'm a Jew. And the Russian lieutenant says, no, in German, he answers me, no, you are not. Hitler killed all the Jews. See, the Russians came in and saw all the camps. And he said, impossible, I probably was somebody hiding from the Nazi or something like that, okay? So the next day, they took my wristwatch away. Next day, another squadron of soldiers come in, want more wristwatches. We had none. So they lined up all the men, including myself, out on the street and pointed like a rapid-firing weapon at us. We want a wristwatch or we're going to shoot you. I'm a teenager now. I'm laughing, sure they're going to shoot us. No, they meant it. I do not know, just like you, I think, indicated, why I'm here today, why I was safe for this moment. I have many moments like that. These days, there is a message here I'm getting, says, Fred, from a higher authority, Fred, you got to do this, okay? Maybe you can change the world. Now, how much time have I still got now? Huh? 12 minutes? Okay, real fast. I was there. Hitler was appointed chancellor, and a year later, Adolf Hitler Hindenburg died, and 2 weeks later, Adolf Hitler became the leader of Germany by election. Every dictator does that. Every vote that's turned in is counted, and they're like 99.5% voted for that cause. The no votes do not show up. So that's the only time he had an election. And Hitler dissolved all the parties at that time. I was there the entire time. I was there in Berlin when the official boycott began. Or before that, the Reichstag burned. My dad said the Reichstag was our parliament, our Congress is on fire, it's burning. And I said, I'm a kid, I wish I could see that, the fire engine, that sort of thing. On March 21, 1933, in a small town outside of Munich, a town the size of probably Morristown, where I live, it's called Dachau. The first concentration camp was built and completed, and nobody questioned that. Well, if they did, our jails were not big enough for all these people that were arrested after the fire in the Reichstag. Every dictator stages a cause and then addresses the cause why they're doing what they're doing, okay? We have dictators in the world today. Vladimir Putin is one of them. Pay attention to him. China is not a friend of ours. Iran is not a friend of ours. Start paying attention to what's going on in the world. You're no longer protected by an ocean on the eastern and west coast. You can fly from Newark to Europe, any place within 7-8 hours, and Paris, wherever you want to go. A rocket comes faster this way. This is the world that you're growing into, which is scary to me, all right? I was there in Kristallnacht the night of broken glass. I literally walked across broken glass on my way to school. When I got to school, a policeman came up and says, go home, Jew pig, because there will be no school for you today. He says, I didn't know what he was talking about. So I looked up, I saw my synagogue, a congregation of 2,000. Synagogue in flames, and the school next to it where I had to attend by law. I was not allowed to go into public school. Okay, I saw my school in flames. How do you think I felt? I don't have time to ask a question or raise your hand, but I give you the answer right away. I was elated. No school, guys, no homework. I'm a guy, all right? Right now, I'm your age. I'm in your shoes, okay? But I was there. World War II, or the Olympics were in Berlin. I could not say I said that. But then September 1, 1939, Adolf Hitler marched into Poland, okay? A lot of people say that's when the Holocaust began. No, it began in Berlin on January 30th, 1933. And nobody in the world recognized that what was happening. Unbelievable to me. During the 6 years that he was appointed to September 1, Adolf Hitler built a motorized military, Air Force, tanks, U-boats, you name it. Our intelligence could not spot that. I cannot believe that. Why were we asleep? Why are we asleep what North Korea wants to do and put a nuclear device into the air and aim it at Times Square? Why don't we agree to an agreement in Iran that it's a danger to us? It scares me, all right? That's the world you're going into. You got to look beyond your social media and look at the news. Or look, and the news may not be totally transparent what's going on either. Be aware what's important to you to be safe and live in a free society. Going forward after Kristallnacht, in 1943, in 1933, there were about 195,000 Jews living in the city of Berlin. 10 years later, in February 1943, there were 23,000. My father and I are two of them. My father married my mom. My mom came from a Protestant family, converted to Judaism. The Nuremberg laws did not accept that because in our bloodline, there were no Jews. So she was really an Aryan, okay? So my father and I were targeted. So Joseph Goebbels was the propaganda minister of Germany. It was all that rhetoric, all the speech, hateful speeches. But he also was the political leader for the city of Berlin. He was going to give Adolf Hitler a birthday present on April 20th, 1943, that the city of Berlin is now declared all cleaned of Jews. No more Jews left there. My father is arrested. All Jews between ages 16 and 65 had to do a 48-hour week working demeaning labor for the government. My father is arrested on a Saturday morning because he's married to a non-Jewish spouse, is held in a facility in Berlin, a former welfare-type office on a Jewish administration, now run by the Gestapo. He's in there with probably 1,000 other men and some women because they're married to non-Jewish spouses. My mom is making sandwiches that morning and says, Dad is not coming home. He was arrested. There was a raid today. Well, I'm again the teenager. Says, well, he didn't do anything wrong. He would be interrogated and then sent home. And Mom said, Mom, what are you doing? So I'm going to bring them some food. They're not being fed. And that's true. They would not feed the people. They're going to die anyhow, okay? So we left the apartment building, went to this place called Rosenstraße, Street of Roses. Google it. Go on and Google. You probably find a German-made film called Rosenstraße. I was at that site with my mom and other wives, okay? And we demonstrated in front of that building, give us back our husbands. The SS came by, and the SS was the Gestapo, but the Gestapo is civilian clothes, the SS wore the battle uniform, okay? They came by, mounted machine guns on the truck, shot in the air. I was very scared at that moment, and it blanked out in my mind what happened there. We came home that day from the demonstration. The women demonstrated there for days. Other German women, upstanders, came out and said, this is wrong what government is doing. We have husbands there in the front line in Stalingrad. We wouldn't like what they're doing if they would do that to our husbands. So people that were not bystanders, they demonstrated with that, which caused Joseph Goebbels to release everybody in that building. My father came home after several days, okay? But meanwhile, those that were not married to non-Jewish spouses, at least 7 transports out of Berlin after that date went to Auschwitz. and that's in each transfer was 1,000 people. Okay, so now the 7,000 out of 23. As far as the 23 number is, the world had closed their doors for Jews to come to. You could not escape, okay? So you do that arithmetic. My dad came home and never talked about it. I came home, the building superintendent came out of his apartment, says, Mrs. Hyman, while you were gone, the Gestapo was here to pick me up. Mom says, Fred, you got to go to bed. And Fred says, Mom, I'm not tired. And when Mom says, shut up, you go to bed, you go to bed. You understand that. I know that, okay, because that's what moms do when you give an argument. And so if anybody says anything, tell me you're sick. Mom, I'm not sick. Go to bed. 20 minutes later, I am in bed. 2 Gestapo agents are ringing the doorbell. I hear my mom talking to them, she's telling them that I'm running a temperature or something. 2 guys come in the bedroom, put their hands on my forehead, and it says, this Jew is sick, we'll pick him up, and he is well. Now, the Gestapo had a law in the book. If a Jew was sick, you bring him to a Jewish hospital in Berlin, run by the Gestapo, fix him up, and put him on a train to Auschwitz. This guy says, well, it's about 6 o'clock at night, I want to go home, I got to tell my superior, I do not have to do this. It's dangerous. He has run a temperature, it could be a disease that spreads if we put him on a train. So I was saved again. The war was over, I come to the United States. And the other thing that saved my life, at the same time, Berlin was heavily bombed by the Allies, heavily. So they call it carpet bombing. The building I was in seeking shelter. My father was at work. My mom went to the farmer's market and took the subway to get some vegetable, which was not rationed. The building I was in underground, a public area, and Jews were not allowed to be in area shelter. Jews were not allowed to ride a bicycle, own a bike, or they were not allowed to go to the movies. They had not allowed to have telephone, no papers, on and on and on. We were totally segregated from the population, okay? Anyhow, the building I was in was hit by 3 bombs simultaneously. That's how dense the bombing came down. Bombs scare me. What North Korea, Kim Jong, whatever his name is, did scares me. Okay, he stopped for a while. Hopefully it stays that way, okay? But I came to the United States, I was 18 years old, and Mom says, Fred, you got to go back to school. I said, Mom, kids graduated when they're 18, like you guys will, okay? Says, you better go back to school. So where would I go to go to high school? They would not take me. I could not speak English. I had an 8th grade completion course for New Americans. And allowed me to enter high school. As I come in, you guys already left. You graduated. Now, this is the message to you guys. You sit and you think you're all that wonderfully safe. You all already have gone through what I went through then. Someplace down the line, I signed on a line or something called the Selected Service Commission. But North Korea, the grandfather guy right now, attacked South Korea, I was drafted. I just came out of the Holocaust in World War II. I was drafted and ended up in Japan with the 45th Infantry Division. Then ended up on the front line in North Korea and served in the military as a machine gunner. But I became a radio operator thanks to my commanding commander, who is, again, another sign, Fred, your time was not up. In that radio truck, I finished my high school, and I came to the United States, I got married. A family in Germany, a Catholic family, helped us surviving. They gave us extra food and made it happen, but they put their lives on the line. Guys become upstanders. Pay attention. Social media, fine, enjoy it, but pay attention who are our adversaries, okay? The world is turning very much to the left. Venezuela right now has become a communist country. I was in Venezuela when it was not. And the Monroe Doctrine did not allow that in the Americas. It's happening. And so is Cuba. And what's happening today is scary to me. So guys, I'm going to end right here, and thank you so very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much. Just two amazing stories. We are going to open this up to questions and answers, but I do believe we're going to take a moment of a break because are some students possibly leaving, or are we not at that time yet? Wonderful. Great. Thank you. Okay. So, again, I hope you guys, took their stories in and something that really affected you that you'll remember to continue. We had a great opportunity to open this up to questions and answers, and I can guarantee you probably any question you've had, Fred and Mark have probably heard before. So don't be shy. Don't be scared. Just, raise your hands and we'll call on you. And if there's any thoughts or anything. Anyone? Yes.
What thoughts guided you guys through these hard times during the Holocaust, and what made you guys keep going because it was difficult?
So what thoughts and ideas guided you guys through the Holocaust, and what kept you going to help you survive in those days? Mark, you can start.
Well, what kept me going basically was my mother, because I was a very young boy, 6, 7, 8 years old. So whatever my mom was telling us, we did. Yes, we had a lot of questions. We couldn't understand why we have to hide, why we have to be hungry and everything. But the only thing, again, my mom always was saying, wouldn't last too long. You're going to see everything be fine. Just another day. And then when the day came, oh, it didn't happen. Okay, so it didn't happen. Will be tomorrow better. And basically the thought about being better was keeping us going. There was nothing else left there.
I was up.
Yes. Yes.
I always was hungry. So I put myself in charge bringing food mentally. And I would make orders. So we have to import potatoes, and we have to import sugar, and we have everything that I think we needed to satisfy, to make this thing away. But really, never, ever give up hope. If you give up hope and give up belief in something that's positive, you're doomed. Learn that's the secret of survival, okay? So I was hoping for it, one day it will be over. And I was going to be in charge, ordering all food supplies coming in. I'm a kid at that time.
Anyone else have any questions? Any thoughts? I can't say where. Oh, yes.
What was your opinion of the Soviets after the war? Because I know Soviet occupation wasn't exactly the best.
What was your opinion of the Soviets after the war? Because Soviet occupation was not necessarily that good. Go ahead.
Me?
Sure.
Well, we actually didn't know much about the Soviet Union at that time. We considered the Soviet Union or the soldiers or the army as liberators. So in the beginning, we felt, grateful to them that they gave us back the freedom. However, after a short period of time, living in Poland under the communist regime, because the government became Poland, a Polish communist regime, all of a sudden we did see the difference. Well, call it a difference, but we didn't know. The older people knew the difference, because you had to live under the communist regime, was kind of a dictatorship. We had to obey rules and regulations, whatever they put. So we saw the negative side of the whole thing, but unfortunately we had to live and be quiet, and you are not allowed to say anything or do anything.
What Mark just said was recognized by Harry S. Truman, who was the president when World War II ended. And he had a proclamation, you can look it up. He had a proclamation warning the world on the spread of communism right after the end of World War II. And communism is now in our hemisphere. And communism is, the next thing to that is what we call a far left in the Democratic Party. Scary to me. Scary to me. I don't think I cheered JFK when he turned a ship around coming to Havana with rockets aiming at Miami. And he says, Mr. Whatever, turn the ship around. And it did. I don't think we have the guts to do that today. And communism is now in our hemisphere. Now, what was the question, though?
How did you feel about communism?
Okay, no, about communism, because the military comes in, behind it comes communism, okay? So when the Russians came into Berlin, they were really animals. Not the other allies, not the French, not the British or the Americans. The Russians came in and they first occupied Berlin and East Germany, okay? They literally went to every machine shop, every factory, and totally moved everything on, every piece of machinery, put it on flatbed railroad cars and took them back to Moscow. And there was a two-track railway between Berlin and Moscow. They even took one of the tracks, lifted it up and took it back to Moscow. They came in and they took my wristwatch. And you know, you're adult enough, I'm allowed to say that every woman was raped. The others did not do that. But they looked at the Germans as their enemy, and in their defense, they lost like 20 or 30 million people in World War II. They were angry, okay? So they were not on their best behavior. So they have a bad reputation.
Any other questions in reference to their stories or survival? Yes. Did you ever begin to second guess your faith?
Well, I wouldn't say that I started that, because faith, anybody could kind of have thoughts about his faith, because besides that it happened to the Jews, in particular Jews, but unfortunately was happening also to many Christians and other beliefs. So yes, maybe to a degree I did, yes.
Did you ever question your faith?
No. First of all, we did not know, neither did you, Mark, when what was happening. We did not know what we know today about the Holocaust, okay? So I was scared in a different way. I was scared from the bombs falling on my head by the Allies. But I says, hey, but that brings the war to an end, okay? I am scared today where sane people, sane adults, Do not question the kind of behavior that's going on. Hate. Where if faith is being attacked. If you say, well, it doesn't concern you, then you're bystanders. Why doesn't say, okay, a good example is, I go to Holocaust Museum with Microbel, with students like you. We go to the Lincoln Memorial, and we read the Gettysburg Address, and there's a Catholic high school went there, and they had an incident, okay? What's going on? These are innocent kids. They're not thinking. They learned something about our history by seeing President Lincoln, where he's memorialized, okay? And Dr. King was at that steps and gave his famous speech. What's going on? Isn't there some sane voice out there that says this is not civil behavior? You would not allow the behavior in this school, what I see on TV, what grown-ups are doing in the Senate and the House of Representatives. Think about it. Scares me because I know where that can lead to. Adolf Hitler was a good speaker. He was a nothing when he was first around. Nobody listened to him. But look what he accomplished, what the harm that he did without a shot being fired. He took over a democratic republic.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes. Did you realize the magnitude of what was happening in the world while it was happening?
No, didn't realize anything because at those days, basically, when we were in particular in Poland, we didn't have any radios, we didn't have any newspapers, and the only thing, sometimes rumors going around about certain things, but actually nobody knew what really was happening at that time. Not enough of that, that after the war, when we already lived and moved to a different location, and people were coming back from, for example, from concentration camps, we didn't even know that there were concentration camps and not far away from where we were living. And the people who came out from the concentration camps basically didn't want to talk about it. They were just kind of keeping quiet, and they didn't want to share their past. So we were not aware, basically, in the beginning about anything.
Same here. Same here. And what was the gist of the questions?
Did you have any idea what was happening?
Yeah. Our radios were Jews were not allowed to have a radio, but we had a radio. A lot of things we had. I should not be here, and I'm lucky that the Gestapo did not pick me up. Then I would not be here. But we had a radio, and the radio had what in those days called short wave. You could hear a foreign country like Radio London, Radio whatever, and the British Broadcasting Company taught their announcers to speak in what you guys now talking. You're doing a lot of texting. You no longer pronounce words. You just it's, what did you say? There's nothing in it because you forgot how to speak. You're doing all the texting. With that, no emotion comes with texting. So the British Broadcasting, BBC, trained their announcers to speak that way because when they broadcast every 2 hours, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, broadcast from London, and that broadcast was, they had transmitters in Germany that would have like a wailing sound over that speak, and out of every sentence, you probably got 3 words what the guy said in BBC, okay? So we get some information of what's going on. because the German press was not transparent what was going on.
Any other questions? Yes. Was there ever a time that you felt that you were going to be found by the Nazis?
Well, yes. Many times we were kind of how to say this, scared, and been in situations that the Germans could find us. Just for example, we were hiding in one of the houses, and the people had a little boy, and unfortunately he wasn't, say, normal. And the Germans came in, and they spoke to his father, and they asked him, "Are there any Jews here?" And father says, "No." And the little boy says, "Daddy, do you remember seeing the 2.5 men, 2.5 people walking, you know, in the forest, out there to the forest?" So he says, "What are you talking?" And the German says, "What do you mean 2.5 men?" And the little boy says, "Yeah, there were 2.5 men." So the Germans thought that he's joking, making fun of them. Can you imagine? They went and they killed the father and the boy. And we were sitting and hiding in the house. Yes, there were situations, quite a few, like scary situations.
I had an encounter with the Nazi, the Gestapo, at Rosenstrasse. Came to my bedroom, and there was, but I did not know the Holocaust. They're not going to do anything to me, okay? So that's one incident. And the other incident, at the beginning of World War II, there was a bakery in where we lived in the apartment building. And my mom volunteered me to make delivery of their fine torts to restaurants for desserts. So I would get a bicycle and a little trailer, and then put cheesecakes and strawberry torts on there, and I make the deliveries, okay? I had making the delivery, one day I made a left turn on the main street in Berlin. There's a traffic cop over there, and he hold up the traffic. I'm in the left lane, want to make a left turn. When he gave the signal, says, "Now come," I'm making my left turn, and the street had what they called in those days a streetcar. You now know it as a rapid rail, light transit, something like that, but it was really a bus on tracks with overhead wires to make them run on we call it a streetcar, Straßenbahn, a tram. I made the left turn, did not see the streetcar coming, and my bicycle front wheel hit the undercarriage. The conductor stopped the car. I fell off, and I got a scar up here, and the policeman came over, bawled me out. "What'd you do? Did you see me doing that?" And I was just stuttering. I was totally flustered. Now, I was not allowed to ride a bicycle, okay? But I did it, okay? Anyhow, I was bleeding. He took a handkerchief out and put his hand on my forehead to stop the bleeding, walked me over the first aid station. Now we have these things in our country called urgent care and all that stuff. Okay, they sewed it up. The policeman took out my name and address, went back to his precinct, where I'm registered. Fred Hyman lives at this street, and he is a Jew. And the law in the book was any time there was any police activity by the local police, they had to send that report to the Gestapo. A week later, we got a letter from the Gestapo. My parents and I need to come to Gestapo headquarters. My mom did some fast talking. I'm in Neverland. So I saw no danger in it. I was too immature at that point, okay? My parents knew what was going on. She talked to us as well. The country is at war, and she volunteered me, her son, to help up the war effort because all the other people on the front line. We all got, my father and I and my mom got a bowling out to let us go. If you get to the Gestapo headquarters in Berlin through that door, you hope you walk out and leave through that same door. The other door ends up in Auschwitz. Yes, I had an encounter.
Anyone else? Anything? Yes. If you could go back and change something, what would you change? Right?
Well, if you could go back and change something, well, what we need to do is basically learn whatever happened in the past. So we have to think currently and in the future, learning on the lessons what happened in the history, that this will never repeat. So we have to keep our eyes and our mind open, and when we see some kind of a hatreds going on, accusations or anything, we have to be aware of it and make sure that we stand up and take part in it and try to convince. As I said before, with fight and hatreds, we wouldn't get nowhere. But if we can sit down with somebody and try to discuss this issue and try to convince and show it through the history that those things what you preaching are no good things. So then probably that's what I would like to see in change, to be aware of it and that this will never happen again.
Thank you so much. I believe we have to end on this note. Do you want to make a comment before we end?
Just say, I went back and I spoke in a Jewish high school in Berlin and a Catholic high school, doing the same thing I'm doing today. I know we have to end, but Chancellor Merkel has done, and from day one, Germany has done, seeing what the Nazis done, they're not hiding it. And Germany is a friend to Israel, is out there behind Israel, whatever they're doing. So, yes, I do the same thing because the world must know what happened, and that's the lesson of the Holocaust.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Mark. You guys have been an amazing student body, and we really appreciate the time you've taken. And I hope that you walk away from something today learning the lessons and continuing to tell their stories and making a change in the world. Thank you so much.
Guys, if we could just stay seated just for one moment, please. I would just personally, on behalf of our faculty and staff and student body, like to thank Fred and Mark for being here. Your stories were truly inspirational to all of us. And Isabella, thank you for moderating. If we could just have one more round of applause for our guests. I know Mrs. Hotaling's class is going to stay. If we can dismiss, we are going to dismiss to fourth period right now. So we are going to start with the section over here to my left. If you could start making your way to fourth period. Absolutely, yeah. The two middle sections, we have the doors open in the back, the two middle sections, and the section on the right, you can use the door to the right. Fourth. No, we skipped third.